Oh hey guys, Blue Devil with Overclock.net. Today I want to have a little conversation with you. Where does the GTX 1070 fit in? And where does the GTX 1080 fit in? Well, right next to each other. So with the recent release of NVIDIA's new GTX 1070 Ti, that fits in right in between, right? Does it make the 1080 irrelevant or the 1070 relevant? Well, kinda sorta. So what do I mean by kinda sorta? Well, kind of sort of means that NVIDIA sort of locked down the frequencies of the GTX 1070 Ti's. What I mean by that is all board partners are now required to ship at 1607 core, 1683 boost, and a 8 gigahertz clock on the memory. So basically there's no differentiator between all the other manufacturers for clock speed for that example. Zotac, EVGA, MSI, I'm sure, they all have their own little tweaks that they can do. So one tweak is going to be Zotac's own Firestorm software, which they have an OC profile with a 150 megahertz core click overclock. Coincidentally, that also gives you a 100 megahertz overclock in the memory. I got a little bit further. My overclocks went to about 225 megahertz on the core, which boosted up over 2100 megahertz. On the core, and then I got an extra 300 megahertz on the memory. So they were a little conservative in their overclocks, but it is a one-click overclock. So that's how Zotac is getting around the whole locked frequency. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Zotac GTX 1080 Ti Amp Extreme model. This is a behemoth of a GPU fin stack. It is a 2.5 card slot design, kind of similar to the GTX 1080 Ti from Zotac Amp Edition that we took a look at. The card notated right above here, but just a behemoth card. So the question in my mind is, does the GTX 1070 Ti Amp Edition make or break a GTX 1080 Founders Edition? Which I actually have in my possession as well, being my personal card. So we're gonna put those two head to head today and see how that stacks up. Spoiler, this is a beast of a card. So realistically, everybody knows the specifications of the GTX 1070 Ti, which is basically a cut down GTX 1080. This features a triple fan design with ice storm cooling with echo fans. Echo fans basically means that they're almost inaudible at idle and almost dang near inaudible during at load. Never have I seen this card reach a 60-degree threshold. It's just absolutely nuts. It has a metallic exo armor on the outside with a wraparound backplate, which is really nice to protect the back side of the card. It does bring back the yellow on the GTX 1070 edition. 1080s and 1080 Ti's did not have that, but the yellow is back and the push to limit logo does light up in white LED. Power boost is still present as normal, but we are going to take this bad boy apart a little bit and see how this ticks. I'm assuming this ticks just like the 1080 Ti with that cooling VRM plate there, which, take note, is not attached to the fin stack or the cold plate in any way. So take note of that, but there is enough airflow here to keep the VRMs in check, so I don't think it needs to be attached. But on the outside of the cooler, you do get your spectral lighting, which is also controllable through your Firestorm app. You can control the Zotac logo here where it says push limit again, and the outside of the cooler itself with addressable LED. It's not 16.8 million colors, but it has about 5 or 6 different colors that should match most of your designs. If not, you can just turn it right off. All right, so what do I think about the GTX 1070 Ti Amp Edition from Zotac? Awesome card, great cooler on it, keeps everything in check. The yellow could go away, but I'm not going to complain. If you have a yellow color theme, it'll go right in. If not, well, you might have to break out the spray can. All right, so in terms of benchmarks that I ran, I didn't run the full slew of benchmarks. I found that every single GTX 1070 Ti that I could find on the internet was realistically benching about the same as each other. The only differentiator is the cooling solutions. So Zotac, being the Amp Extreme model that we're reviewing today, is a extreme version, so it should particularly cool very well. So I'm expecting this to beat my GTX 1080, and it does come close in quite a few different benchmarks. So speaking of which, the benchmarks I ran was 3D Mark Firestrike, 3D Mark Time Spy, Superposition, Cinebench R15, that's the OpenGL version for the GPU, and Return of the Tomb Raider. So like I said, I didn't run a whole slew of benchmarks. I just wanted to see if it could beat my GTX 1080. And you're gonna have to look at the benchmark results for yourself. So it's interesting. Alright, so in conclusion, the GTX 1070 Ti Amp Edition from Zotac is a hefty card. It's got a hefty price point of about $499.99 US, so you're going to pay about a $50 premium for it. But for what you get, I think it's worth it. It contends with a GTX 1080, it beats a 1070, and I think in response to a EVGA 56 or 64 solution, if you want to stay Team Green, this is not a bad card to go with. So with that said, I'm going to award this 4.5 out of 5 flames. The only reason why I'm knocking it off a half a flame is because it is a 2.5 card slot design. You're going to need some room in your case for it. Plus it is a large card. So other than that, I'm Blue Devil with Overclock.net. See you guys in the next one.